away, days burn, disintegrate, years roll along and fade. Don't let them slip away. Right here, right now, today. These are the good old days. Right here, right now, today. Hey, these are the good old days.
In the 1980s, we were bombarded by colorful and exciting cartoons that would consume us on a Saturday morning. And each of those cartoons would usually have a colorful and exciting toy line to accompany and promote it. Now, these lines would come and go as the shows would come and go, and they would be here for a year or 2 or 3 or 12 in the case of G.I. Joe. But with each toy line, there was a beginning and an end. Now, the exception to this, the anomaly, was the colorful and exciting world of professional wrestling. These larger-than-life heroes would do battle inside of a ring, and we would cheer and boo till our hearts content. It was the most exciting thing about a Saturday morning. Now, there was a colorful and exciting toy line to support professional wrestling. However, there was no end to the show. It's still going now. Since its renaissance in the 1980s, professional wrestling has been a constant in households all across the world. And so the toy line that accompanies this ongoing narrative never really stops. So it wasn't like we had wrestling toys and then it stopped and we had our collection. It was changing every week. And so was the landscape of wrestling toys. The first wrestling toys we got were either the LJN WWF Superstars, which were non-articulated big pieces of rubber that were fantastic, or the AWA wrestlers that were just rip-offs of He-Man that were fantastic. We would play out our backyard WrestleManias with all these toys, and we loved it. Now, around 1989-1990, LJN stopped producing wrestling figures, and the license went to Hasbro. And what Hasbro came out with is what, in my mind, is the apex of wrestling figures. This was the time they were the most like a toy. They were designed to be played with. They had action features, they had bright cartoony looks, they had great popping colors. They were fantastic. The line that followed this, when it went to Jakks, you started getting multiple different variations of superstars, collector box sets, and then it evolved into the wrestling collector's dreamland we live in now. But for a few brief years, in what I would call the apex of my wrestling fandom, the time from WrestleMania 5 to WrestleMania 8, Hasbro WWF wrestlers reigned supreme, and I love them. And recently I was able to acquire the shell of the Hasbro ring. The wrestling ring for your figures was the frame that went around the picture that was the toys. Now, as a child, my father made me a wrestling ring, so I didn't have this one. But my friend across the road, Brandon, did, and we would use his a lot as well. Now, don't get me wrong, I always loved the one that my dad made me, but there was something about this ring, the bright colors, the play features, just you brought a piece of the World Wrestling Federation home with you, and your figures finally had a stage to battle for the belt. So today we're going to take a look at this Hasbro ring and see if we can't resurrect it.
But the cream will rise to the top, oh yeah.
Alright, so here is our shell of the ring. So it is just that, it's a plastic shell. Now it has a couple stickers on it. The stickers here on the tables are in pretty good shape, and then the Hulk Hogan TV sticker here is in pretty great shape. The sticker on the middle of the ring here is pretty moldy and gross, and it's pretty damaged. So some guys like to keep there because it's original, but I'm going to get it out of there. We're going to peel it up. All the vintage guys are going to get angry. I'm just going to do it, and we're going to make a new one for it so it looks minty and new. Alright, now that we have the lion's share of the sticker off, just a little bit of residue there, we need to make a new sticker, so we're going to go into PowerPoint and we're going to design up a new sticker for our ring. Alright, so now we have our sticker made up here, and we're just going to clean up the ring, and I think it's going to match up pretty nicely. I think it came out real good. We're just going to cut it out and put it on the ring. There we go. That looks actually really good. I'm very happy with how that came out. The color matched really, really well. Looks brand new. So now we got to design up the ring posts and the flag that came with the ring. So we're going to go to our flash print design space and design those up. Alright, so here's our posts we have now. So design them up to fit there perfect, and I'm just going to set them into each corner, and they should fit really nice and snug. There's a little latch there that I made just to slide in once it gets sit in the right spot. Just turn it around here. There we go, and it should just slide in and snap right in place. There we go, just like that. Now I'll do the other three. Alright, now that we have all 4 posts in place, it's time to get the ropes on. So these came with elastic ropes. I'm not going to use elastic ropes, I'm going to use this paracord, which is nylon, so there's no stretch to it at all. I find it's better for displaying figures without having the elastic bounce and whatnot to them. That just makes the display a little bit easier if you want to stand on the ropes or whatnot. So what we need to do those, have them cut to a certain length, is you have to melt them together. So I'm going to use a match and melt them together. So if you're a child watching this, restoring your vintage ring, do not do this. Get a parent to help you. And if you're an adult, do it very carefully. There's 2 steps to this process. First, you want to melt the ends so they're not frayed anymore. And once you have the ends melted so they're easy to work with, you want to fuse them together. And we're going to use a match to do that. And we're going to do that very carefully. So the first thing we're going to do is just melt the ends so they're easier to work with. And then once we have the ends melted, just like that, we can then light it again and fuse them together. We just fuse them together here, and then they will never come apart. And since we have that done, we just do it for the other 2 ropes as well. And there we have, all of our ropes are good and fused together, and so they're going to be just perfect forever. Let's get them on the ring. So now we have our posts and our ropes are a little bit too big for these posts as they currently stand because we've got to put the turnbuckles on them. Now the original turnbuckles had holes in them and were kind of goofy, so I'm going to design up my turnbuckles to be a little bit different. So let's head to our flash print space to do that. So here is our turnbuckle. What I've done is I've put this little wide trench in the bottom of them so they don't have a hole in the front anymore. So they're just going to sit on top of the ropes and clip into place like that. And that will tighten the rope up so that when all 4 are on, it should be looking just kind of perfect. So let's get our ropes and our turnbuckles on this ring. there we go. Our turnbuckles are working and our ropes are in place and everything's looking straight and tight, and it's I'm very impressed. I'm happy with how this is turning out. Now the ring also came with originally an American flag, so we designed up one of those and we're going to give it a little wave here. So we printed it flat and we're going to do the hot water trick and give it a little wave. Alright, so here's our flag. We printed up. We printed it flat because it's the strongest way to print things is printed nice and flat. So we're going to do the dip it in hot water trick, and we're going to give it a little wave to it. It'll fit right into the post like that. Let's get our hot water and give it a little wave. So here's our hot water, and we're just going to dip our flag into it. And hopefully this is just really fun and magical. It's going to get real soft, and then we're going to pull it out and kind of weave it as we pull it out. And look at that. We've got ourselves a waving in the wind flag. Fantastic. Now, because WrestleMania 6, the greatest WrestleMania of all times, was in Toronto, and I am Canadian, we're going to make this a Canadian flag, not an American flag, just to give it a little bit of personality, polite personality.
We got a beaver on the nickel and a blue nose on the dime. Newfoundland's always half an hour ahead of time. A big red maple leaf on the flag, but we don't like to fuss, don't like to brag. About the Mounties, Canadian Justice, the Great One, Canadian Wayne, Terry Fox, Canadian hero we'll never forget all that he gave up north. Canadian cold front downtown, Canadian tire, Alberta beef, Okanagan wine, oh, I'm Canadian.
Alright, so the last thing we need is the championship belt that came with the ring. So let's go and make one of those. So the first thing we're going to do is go into PowerPoint and get a clean version, a clean rendering of what the belt to look like in black, like a grayscale color scheme. And that way we can import just the grayscale color scheme into Flash print, and we can take the layers apart and build it by layers and then print it off. So let's get that done. Alright, so here's our grayscale version of the belt we want. And now we're going to just import that into Flash print, and we're going to slice it apart into some layers. We're going to build a belt and print it off. Alright, so here we have what I think is a good representation of the Hasbro version of the Winged Eagle belt. So let's print it off and see how we did. Alright, so here's our belt. We didn't print a fastener on the end of it because we're going to put it in hot water and we're going to sculpt it into an oval to go around the little thing on the table there. And hopefully then it'll be spring-loaded enough that it will be able to fit around wrestlers that kind of snapping on, like our 30-30 saddle. And that way we don't need a fastener, we just have a belt that can go on display on the table or around any wrestler we choose. So let's see if we can get this working. Alright, then after a little bit of shaping in the hot water, our belt, you can see here, is in a nice oval shape, and so it's a little bit smaller than the oval on the table, the display oval. So that way it'll fit snug on there, and it'll have a little bit of spring to it. So you'll be able to fit it on here, just like that, for display, as well as it fit around the waist of any wrestler. Now we have these raised plates we did, so we're just going to take this gold paint marker and hopefully, just kind of like an etching, just paint on the raised parts, and this belt will start looking like the old Hasbro one did. If we do our job right, we'll see how we do. Alright, and I think that turned out really nice. It really kind of looks like that old Hasbro belt design. It can fit both on the ring display unit here, just like the vintage one used to. Snaps on there, and I think it'll be able to fit onto a legendary champion here. So there you go. There's our restoration of the WWF Hasbro Ring. I'm so excited with the way that it turned out. Could not be happier. I think it's going to look great on display, giving my Hasbro wrestlers a place to live. If you like what we're doing, you're having as much fun as we are, make sure you like, subscribe, share, do all the YouTube stuff, ring the bell, all the YouTube stuff. You can follow us and support us on Patreon if you'd like. But most importantly, we're looking forward to seeing you on the next video.